Three times. Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. I thank you very much, everyone, for attending today. Everyone online can hear me okay? Yes? Good. Okay. Beautiful. Well, today we're going to study about Shodaigyo. Shodaigyo is really important because actually the way that I teach Buddhism is I believe to introduce Shodaigyo first before introducing, for instance, even chanting a service. That's different than what other people consider and think to do. But actually, the reason why is because most people today need to have a experiential understanding before they do anything, right? Also, I believe that service, even though it's our primary practice for, how do you say it, honoring the Buddha in the morning and in the evening, is actually, I consider graduate school Buddhism. And the reason why is because actually it's made up of many individual important teachings that usually are kind of just glossed over because people teach it as a whole. So therefore, all of the specific parts that actually help us in our practice to attain the concept of kanjin, or the correct mindfulness of Buddhism, we become kind of distracted into just performing some kind of ritual rather than understanding its parts, because each part is transmitted specifically to enable us, as the Buddha said in chapter 16, quickly and effectively attain enlightenment. All right, so it's very important to know in Buddhism, we may have our attachments to Buddhist practices and Buddhist teachings, but as the Buddha says in chapter 16, that's the only purpose for his teaching. So therefore, we may be attached to systems and those kinds of things, but actually, we should understand what is our goal of Buddhism. So before we go into that, what is our goal in Buddhism? In Nichiren Buddhism specifically, we know in Zen Buddhism, what is the goal? Does anyone know? Please raise your hand if you know. Attain enlightenment. They say kensho, kind of a samadhi, like a kind of continuous concentration. So that means they're able to sustain concentration and then have some insight into their original nature. That is the meaning of kensho. Right? How about Nichiren Buddhism? Huh? Kanjin. Not me. The name. Kanjin. It's interesting because many times I studied Nichiren Buddhism, but that was never made clear to me. And I know each Buddhism has their own goal that they like to attain. And so therefore, I guess that gives me a lot of weight on my shoulders to be named Kanjin, right? That's why I remember when Tsukumoto Sensei gave me the name Kanjin, I didn't understand the significance, you know? And in Japan, usually you don't give your disciples such names. Like you also don't name your children after famous people, right? Because it's a lot of weight or some karma that's attached to it. So I never really understood until I started studying Nichiren Buddhism how important Kanjin was. What is one writing by Nichiren Shonen that we know? Kanjin Honzon Sho. And what does that mean, Kantoku?
네, 혹시 revolution 나올 때 most sublime and contemplation.
The correct object of veneration for correct contemplation and practice. You know, that's my wording for it. But kanjin is the state of mind, which is different than what Zen Buddhism studies. That's why even our method is different. Some people may say, well, why don't we study like Zen Buddhism? Well, goal is a little different. Same as in Vedism or other practices that entitled that are meditations, for instance, right? So this kanjin is this kind of looking into our true nature, but that true nature is not a general true nature. That true nature has to do with a Buddha nature. Master Tiantai talks about it as the true awakened nature of the Buddha is kanjin. Kan, the first character, means to see clearly, to observe. And it's not like a regular observation, like with your eyes, right? It's coming from the Buddha nature inside. So we have many different ways of seeing things. Through our eyes are attached to our brain, right? What does our brain usually do to us? Misinterpret what the eyes are saying, right? So the sense organs, as they come in, that's why they call it the pollution of the sense organs. And in other Buddhism, they try to purify these, because if you try to if you don't purify your sense organs, then you become polluted with evil thoughts or distractions or suffering. So therefore, they practice in Buddhism to purify these aspects. Shodaigyo also talks about this. But this idea of kanjin, the next is to see into heart. But heart, it is written, is actually, if you look at it, it's actually the four valves of the heart, the way it is in the Chinese character. And then, could you get me the board, the whiteboard with a marker? So I'll show you because actually to see the kanji actually helps. So if you know how to break down the kanji into the different aspects, you'll be able to understand more. And we'll go through each of these parts. So yeah, having the name kanjin was a lot of pressure after I realized what it was for. If you could hold that, yeah, I think so. Han is this one. This one. So the different ways, there's different ways of writing. Do you have a paper?
You just want the erase, Micah.
Oh, you do. Okay. Maybe we need a little stand one. Can you break down that? Can you see if that stand makes smaller? If we shorten the legs, then I can just put it up. If you can move your desk back, maybe coming and sit on it, and lower those legs.
Just get on the chair here. Or did you want to use this as?
No, I think I have to use the stand. Come closer to me. Push it with this way. Just for now. Okay. Sorry, mechanical issues. We'll be right with you. Please stand by. Is it working, Michael?
Nice and safe.
Slowly but surely. Could you grab me the Makashikan?
Right.
You know where it is?
I know how it looks.
I think it might be in the tea room in the Tokunoma as you just walk into the right. You find it?
Yes.
Okay. This will work. I think you're that good.
And I'll just like sit over here and the cushion.
There we go. I thank you.
Did you want more than just the black marker? Because you have to get the
No,
color.
no, I don't need the other colors. So this is Master Tiantai's Makashikan. And we usually study from the Sho Shikan, which means the small Shikan. Is that light okay? Thank you everyone for making this happen to put everything together. Okay. Today, when we were practicing meditation, we were actually going directly from the Makashikan, such as the instructions that I gave you are the basic instructions of how to sit in meditation. As I stated, it is the small version of the Makashikan, which is actually quite large. And with it is the basic instruction manual for meditation. So it's kind of the overall instruction manual for all traditions of meditation. And so therefore, this is usually one of the most famous sutras, but because it was just recently translated after 30 years of translating effort by Professor Swanson, we finally have it available to us, which is very nice. Okay, so yeah.
What was the Makashikan written anyway?
So Makashikan, if you look specifically, it is made in the. That's a good question. So Master GD, GEs who actually the Makashikan is his lectures, and it was actually recorded by his disciple. It wasn't actually him writing it. And GD lived in the 6th century, so he lived from 538 to 597. That's when it actually was. So as you can see, that is actually when Buddhism was first in China, so many different teachings. And like Nichiren and Shonen, the question came about which teaching is the correct teaching? What's the correct way of meditation, right? And Master Tiantai found out to be concerning the Lotus Sutra itself. Okay. So as we were talking about this concept of shikan, so the old character for shikan is kan is I'm sorry, my eyes are. Oh, that was really old style. Yeah, then that's old stuff. Yeah. So this she, right? This means to see. Just that's regular seeing. But what this denotes, because when you look at Chinese characters, they're made of different particle, like to see, but this means like to see the inner truth, like deeply into one's mind, which we would say Buddha nature. And this is a kan. Yeah? And jin is this one, but actually can be pronounced as shin, but actually jin. And actually, if you look at it, it's the 4 ventricles of the heart. You know how the heart has 4 ventricles? So 1, 2, 3, 4.
So they're reflecting that on the image.
But this doesn't mean a regular heart. It can mean the physical heart. But actually, as we know, the idea of heart doesn't mean heart. In this, it also means spirit, nature. So we would seeing into the original nature, the eternal nature. So this is not simple concentration. Okay, this is not simple awareness. What they do is that the idea of stopping and seeing is seeing into the true heart of things. Because Buddhism, even though people think Buddhism is about the idea, when you meet most people say Buddhism is non-attachment, right? Let go of things, no emotion. That's a very beatnik way of thinking. That's what early Zen practitioners thought it was, right? It's like same as that guy was when he was taught people to drop acid to tune out, and what was his Leary? Leary, he would what was it? Drop and
turn on, drop out.
Drop out. But actually, we're not dropping out. We're coming back. So kanjin means to actually see into our true self, our true mind. So actually, when you get the Buddhist name like this, I didn't know why it was so significant, even though I understood in Tiantai Buddhism, it was important. But actually, Nichiren and Shonin said, this is the purpose of our practice and study, is kanjin. So when people say, all Buddhism is the same, that's not true. The goals are different. So that's why the methods are different. So that's why people will say always, so as we're talking about Shodaigyo, when you're teaching people, people always say, well, don't you practice meditation? Actually, 25 years ago, more than that, sorry, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, people didn't even know what meditation was, as crazy as that means. No one used the word meditation. Many faiths didn't allow the word meditation to be used because it was an Eastern concept. And it wasn't yet big. It was big among certain communities like Zen Buddhism, etc. But actually, most people thought that Buddhists just sat around chanting, right? Or saying some mantra. My mother, when I first became a Buddhist, she didn't know what a Buddhist was. She just made me promise that she would never see me at the airport handing out flowers. And I said to my mother, that is a Hare Krishna, not I don't care. Just I don't see you at the airport. So luckily that was probably done by the 70s. That's a very interesting experience about the 70s. I always think of that movie Airplane, where they're walking through and the pilot's just hitting everyone that's at the airport.
There's even Hare Krishna scene in that movie too.
Yeah, that's right. That's the one. So why our method is different? Because our goal is different. So that's why some people will generalize Buddhism and say, all Buddhism is the same, right? We all want to attain the same state. But actually the sutras are different as well. So one of the great contributions of Master Tiantai was the 5 periods of teaching, right? The 5 periods was that he was able to categorize all the vast amount of Buddhist teachings into a series of how the Buddha educated people. And the final was the Lotus Nehan, or the Lotus Nirvana series, which contained the Lotus Sutra and the Nirvana Sutra. Now, a lot of the sutras that people talk about, the Diamond Sutra is a very big one, depending on what sect of even Zen Buddhism or other practice of Buddhism, they all have different sutras that they consider to be the highest, right? Such as in Shingon, they consider the Great Sun Buddha Sutra to be highest, right? But in Zen Buddhism, they may chant the Hanya Shingyo, the Harsh Sutra, or the Diamond Sutra. Yeah? But actually, or even a Surigama Sutra, very famous. That was one that I really liked, the Surigama Sutra. It took me about 4 weeks in a cell where they tape you in and they put the food under the door, and all you do is sit and read sutras and commentaries. So it took me almost 3 or 4 weeks to read just that set of sutra. But then also the Chinese always write commentary. So read 1 page of sutra and then the master said, you use that for debate, you use that for study, etc. But actually, I like the idea of Nichiren Buddhism, where when Squalto Sensei first gave me the Lotus Sutra without commentary, I was kind of lost in a way, because I thought I had read the Lotus Sutra with commentary, but I actually couldn't, to be honest, remember any of the commentary because I wasn't tested on it. And also the Lotus Sutra to me was so complicated because it didn't tell me what to do. Most sutras are like, okay, this is the main point. This is the way you're going to do it. But the Lotus Sutra didn't have that. So that's why Lotus Sutra is sometimes complained by people about being a teaching without a teaching, right? That's why sometimes it just seems like a mystical story, right? Where is the teaching? Where is Ichinen Sanzen, right? Where is all of that Master Tiantai found it was inspired by the Lotus Sutra? Where is it? That makes the idea of the Lotus Sutra complicated. But that our main connection is that with the heart of the Buddha, to see the heart of the Buddha, to see the true mind of the Buddha. That is what the Lotus Sutra is supposed to be. The Buddha is supposed to be the true state, the true mind, the true body of the Buddha. And what that means is that you may not know because you didn't read all the sutras, right? Sometimes sutras look like they contradict each other. Actually, they do contradict each other. So that was a problem when I was a monk, because I thought, okay, which one is the most important? Well, actually, most people don't ask that question. They just say, which one do I like best, right? Like everything else. Which one do I like best or makes me feel good? Wasn't that which one is the right thing? I guess I didn't think about that. But Nichiren Shonin asked the correct question. Which one was the Buddha's intention? And then also the Buddha had such a wisdom that he gave teachings after he passed away. He knew 3,000 years after the Buddha passed away, people would be different than they were during his time. And that the teachings, because he was no longer around, would become more convoluted and misunderstood. Yeah? So that's why there were different periods of teachings were acceptable. So it's a misunderstanding that Nichiren Buddhism hates all other sutras, right? It seems like that, but it's not the way it is. What it is that which sutra is the most appropriate for the time. Because again, the heart of the Buddha is what? We see this in chapter 16, right? In chapter 16 at the end, do you have it, Jan, on Jigage in English? Maybe use your blue book there. I want to see how they say it exactly, because I always, add a little bit something. So let's hear exactly how they translate it. So the very end of chapter 16 in English. I think that's 16, yeah. What are the last stanza?
I am always thinking, how shall I cause all living beings to enter into the unsurpassed way and quickly become Buddhas?
See, that's Buddha's true mind. Okay, so sometimes we get attached to the method of Buddhism, right? That's why the schools fight against Buddhism, each other. My way is better. My way is greater, right? Your way is not as great. That is not the purpose of Buddhism. Purpose of Buddhism is that's an ignorance, to see wisdom, to know what the Buddha was transmitting to us. That the Buddha left us the Lotus Sutra for this time period. Man. So therefore, the essence of the Lotus Sutra is to save all beings quickly and efficiently. So our focus is, of course, on the Lotus Sutra. That's why we chant Namyo Horen Gikyo. With Shodaigyo, Shodaigyo was actually created by someone named Gondo Shonen. So this actually, Shodaigyo is actually a new method within Nichiren Shu. It comes from a very old teaching called the Shikan meditation, which is based on Master Tiantai's teaching. Okay, Shikan is stopping and seeing. Stop, see, or stopping and observing, or stopping and when you say seeing, it's the insight. Concentration insight is I like that translation, but it's not concentration, it's continuous concentration and continuous insight. You have to kind of add, is that an adjective to it to extend the word? So most English words don't do the correct meaning, right? They're kind of very plain, like vanilla ice cream. You have to put it, add something to it to understand the actual meaning of it. So Shodaigyo was brought because in an older style, and again, Nichiren Shu, you have to understand, is an umbrella of many different traditions of Nichiren Buddhism, all of them with their different flavors, right? How they practice, how they study. There was so much similarity, but there were also differences, because some were more like Tendai, right? And some were more like just Nichiren Buddhism, very, different than Tendai. But in Tendai, Shikan meditation is a method that's supposed to be the main method to see this kanjin. But Nichiren Shonen saw that even meditation in that method was too difficult for most people. And that it wasn't that we're all stupid, right? Or that he thinks that he looks down on us. What was the thing that the Buddha said? Quickly and efficiently. So Nichiren Shonen's great enlightenment was he understood by upholding the sutra, by keeping the sutra, right? The 5 practices that we have, copying, reciting, right? By keeping the daimoku, we could keep all of those precepts within the chanting of the daimoku. Shodaigyo means the great chanting practice. Shodaigyo. So, let me write it down. Shodai, if you look in your chanting book, Shodai is actually just chanting. That means chanting correctly. Shodaigyo, Shodaigyo. I think I'm getting a little jet lag today. It's really weird.
That's it.
Yeah. Go
When they
ahead.
say chant correctly, it's more than just
procedure of doing it. It's doing it with your heart, correct?
Well,
Is that what you mean?
procedure, right, is to allow you to experience how to do it with your heart. Because again, this is the problem with Buddhism. As I said, I made a podcast. Is it good enough for you?
Oh, yes.
Most people think their level of Buddhism good enough for them if they feel good after they do it. The idea of Buddhism is to change something. So, right, we release our attachment, our idea to use the method in order to experientially understand it, which should bring us to a higher level of understanding than just, okay, I feel good now, right? Because that's what people seek with Buddhism. And then when the challenges come, they go, I don't want to do this anymore, right? It's all too real. I've been asked too many questions. I have to deal with too many things. I'd rather go back to stick my head in the dirt. But actually you can't. That's the caveat. So once you give it to someone, you can try it, right? But it doesn't mean you can do it. So when the Red Hot Chili Peppers song said, once you know, you can't go back. That idea. So in Shodaigyo, the great chanting practice, so we focus on chanting, but actually we use a shikan, stopping and seeing. Okay, so it says, this is one of the phrases, Shodaigyo no kokoro sono saho no jisen. So this is a heart and Shodaigyo, and sono saho to jisen. Saho is manners and jisen is practice. So that is what we do. Shodaigyo is to chant the Odaimoku intently, staring deeply into the heart of the self, in identification of the purified mind. Because idea we know about the 10 worlds, as we were talking about the other night. You have a 10 worlds, and here is a hell mind, human, and this is Buddha. Man. We know how to nourish, even this is a heaven one, right? Maybe we don't know how to nourish that so much, but this is the realm of reincarnation, the 6 worlds. We know how to nourish these minds, the animal mind, Ashuddha mind, anger or fighting mind, human mind, heavenly mind. Maybe we don't know unless you're a celebrity or something like that. Don't have lots of money. We don't know much about heaven. But actually other things we know what we invest in, that is that state of mind. But other minds higher than that, what is a Shavaka, the hearers, right? What is Prataka Buddha, private Buddha mind? What is Bodhisattva? What does Buddha mean? You know, you're all taking a really big risk because you say Buddha is good, right? I want to be a Buddha, but you don't know what that means, do you? Do you know? Have any idea? That's hard. Why would you do that? Why would you even try? Because that's crazy, right? Crazy talk. Yeah? Why do you do it then? Does anyone have an answer?
I just want to be at peace.
So you believe that there's that peace, because we may not be at peace now, but we kind of have a hope that there's peace. What inspires that hope through Buddha?
Just, I think after certain toil to come to some sort of acceptance. It's like, okay, this is it. It's like as it is.
As it is. That's always a tough teaching for people to do. But how about the Buddha himself? You know, look at even Buddha or Nichiren Shonin. Something is inspirational about that. I don't know what it is, but something in our mind. That's why I remember somebody going, aren't you irritated that, you know, when you go to the garden store, besides the little garden gnome, they always have a little garden Buddha, right? If they did like that to other religious people, maybe they'd burn the store down, right? But Buddhists, they don't mind, right? Why? I said, actually, I don't mind. Because I would go to devout Christian, like a evangelical Christian, right? But they would always introduce me first to their Buddha in their yalong, right? And Buddha was never put in the kind of shrine like this or in a special, he was always put outside under a bush or in something, because as Irina was saying, because he was just a symbol of peace, of tranquility. For other religions, sometimes it doesn't seem like tranquility, it seems like, you know, I don't want to go in that building today, right? You know, always like looking down or something, you are in trouble today, you know, like going to meet the principal or something, right? But actually, in Buddhism, oh look, everyone loves the Buddha. They don't understand. Even in the remember Chinese restaurants a long time ago, and the people rub the tummy all the time, right? And they say, "What about that? Are you hate the what do you think about that? Are you insulted?" No, I don't mind. But actually, that's not Buddha. Actually, that's Hote. That's a future Buddha. But he's cool too. And he said, I said, no. The only one thing that was strange was then when they pushed a little too where they put the Buddha in the bikini, which again, there's the Buddha, great, inspiration. But I was like, that was a little too much. I mean, everything else I'm okay with, but it's like that's just what do you call tacky, So yeah, I'm going to wear a religious person on my bikini. Obviously, they sold them though. But the Buddha inspires us. When we look at Buddha's mind, we can see man or woman doesn't see, just see enlightened being, our potential as a human. Because I have to say, in most religion, our potential doesn't look so good, right? Doesn't look like we have most potential. If you meet great gurus or something, how I can be like him, right? Really tough. I can't give up everything. Maybe I don't want to give up everything, right? I got family responsibilities, What can I do? I'm kind of stuck. Because that's why most people, when they want to study Buddhism, they think the first thing, well, not everyone does it here, shave their head. I'm going to become a priest. That's the first thing that I'm sure in the priesthood too, right? Everybody wants to be a priest. Jan was the Orthodox priest, right? So I'm sure lots of people, they join the faith, they become very excited, then they want to be a priest, right? They think that's the only way to enlightenment. But actually in Buddhism, especially Buddhist Sutra, all are equal. As I even Tiantai said, almost there are three kinds of spiritual friends I talked about in one of the podcasts. The highest one is kind of like the leader of the country or a good leader of the country or a good spiritual master. But actually, there's not anyone I think who can fulfill that role anymore. Right? Really, because we're all kind of lost in that way. Because Buddha was 2,500 years ago, actually more now. It's just the number they use, but actually I think it's around more 3,000 years ago. Buddha is there. We don't know anything about Buddha, but the one thing we can see is that face of Buddha, and Buddha himself would be inspired. Then how do we see inside the essence of the Buddha? How do we connect that with the Buddha? That is the Shodaigyo. So there's a lot of concepts we have in Shodaigyo. So basic order of Shodaigyo. Michael, could you hand out the Shodaigyo, or Kantoku, could you hand out the Shodaigyo pamphlets, please?
Yes.
To everyone so they can see. Are you okay, Irina?
Just Ukraine came to mind.
I saw. Yeah. Yeah. But that is feel helpless, man. All of that stuff. Always helpless. And Ukraine is just one of many countries that terrible things are going on all the time, every day. That's why you ask yourself, what can I do? Right? Buddha asked himself too, what can I do? We see the baby Buddha now, but when the Buddha became Siddhartha, he still had to go through his childhood, right? Be an adolescent, right? And even get married and have a child of his own. Then he had to think, what can I do? Because even if you have children, how do you save your children? You feel weak. You feel, you can't, when they're sick, you can't take away their illness or their sickness, but you want to. Same with other situations with countries and governments and suffering people everywhere. What should we do? Some people feel hopeless, but actually in Buddhism, our practice is that way to change, that way to help suffering beings. Because actually, if everyone got together and chanted Daimoku, no time for war, right? The mindset would change, the world would change. Then, as the Buddha said, Nietzsche and Shonin said, then the world would be as peaceful as during the reign of these famous emperors in China, etc. When things were in balance, right? And the seasons were in good season and everything without war or fighting. People understood each other. So through Shodaigyo, that is why we introduce in Enkyoji first, rather than showing somebody just to do a long service, right? Because sometimes if you, how many people have done the whole service and it said like, oh, 20 minutes a day I have to do this? It's intimidating, man. And then what does it mean? You feel like you're kind of a fraud, don't you think so? So not everyone feels that way, but what does it mean? And then so just keep chanting. But actually, Shodaigyo allows us to have an experiential understanding because we focus specifically on the Daimoku. Then with the service, we branch out into chanting, meditation, etc. Prayer. So if you open your Shodaigyo, first is a Daihai, Honzon Hai. This is a deep bow to the object of devotion. What is our object of devotion in Nichiren Buddhism? Gohonzon. What does Gohonzon mean? Great object of worship. Divine. Go is an honorific. Go. The Japanese love honorifics. Actually, it comes from China. So everything had an honorific showing. Could be go or o. But Gohonzon, the great object of veneration. Okay? But what does the Gohonzon mean?
The mandala of the Lotus Sutra.
Mandala. What does the word mandala mean in Sanskrit?
Circle,
Circle. Why a circle?
because the circle is perfect.
What were we doing yesterday with a circle?
We were circumambulating.
Circumambulation. Okay? So usually a mandala, you have to work through the mandala. We have a tradition for that as well, through this mandala. But Daimoku, those are deepening your practice, right? So that is not the secret teachings that you need in order to get the real stuff. The real stuff is immediately given to people without any resort, as chanting Namu Myo Horen Kyo. The mandala is all of the 10 worlds here, which are contained in our mind. Now, in the idea of Ichinen and Sanzen, each world contains the other 9. So even if you're in the hell mind, you have a Buddha mind there. So even someone in the hell mind can find a Buddha in that place. They don't have to say, okay, when I get better, when I get more enlightened, then I'll know more about Buddha. No, you can find it anywhere. Honzon represents those, each of the realms. Which is the only realm that's not represented on the Honzon of the 10 realms? Does anyone know? It's a trick question. No, Shavaka is there. Buddha's disciples are there. Which one? Bodhisattva is there.
Is it the human realm?
Human is there.
Animal?
Huh?
Animal?
Animal is there. The dragon king and that is there. The dragon daughter.
Is the heaven realm up there?
Heaven is there.
Hey, Asura,
Huh?
Asura.
Ashura is there. Buddha is there.
No hungry ghosts.
Hunger goes to the realm is there. You all went around, you missed one realm. The Prataki Buddha. The private Buddha.
Oh,
Because we don't know who they are.
Oh.
They're private. That's funny. But actually, they're representatives. That's a trick question, but now it makes sense, right? Because you'll be looking, where's the Prataki Buddha? You can find all the realms there. But actually, Prataki Buddha is not represented, but it's implied because we don't know who they are. They're private Buddhas. They're people who attain enlightenment, certain level of enlightenment, not the Buddha enlightenment, but a certain level through other religions, through other practices, right? Through observing nature. But we don't know who they are, so we can't record their names right now. So when we look at the Gohonzon, that is a reflection of our Buddha nature. That is conjoining with this idea of kanjin. Kanjin is the mindset that allows us to join with the mandala. Then it becomes a Gohonzon and not a piece of paper or abracadabra, right? Some people consider Gohonzon abracadabra or the magic mirror or something like that. But no, that is an idea to join with the Buddha's true mindset that whichever realm we are in, which we contain all 10, we can see the Buddha nature and therefore nourish the Buddha nature. That's the essential part of the Gohonzon. Did anyone online get that Prataki Buddha one? Did they know that? No? Oh man, that was a trick question. That's good. Well, now you know. Actually, it was one time I was talking, we were doing a Gohonzon lecture with Komoto Sensei, Kansei, Shami Kansei had mentioned it. It It was really funny because I was like, oh, that's true. That's really true. When we were going through the Gohonzo, the Tsukamoto sensei. So we bow, we prostrate to the bow. Why do we prostrate? What does a prostration mean? See, this is where the cultural differences will be, right?
It's on honor of the Buddha.
Honor of the Buddha, right? Do you have the Hoyoshiki? Can you bring it to me? Is it here? Yeah. Prostration is actually in Buddhism. Again, remember we regulate what are the 5 regulations? I want you guys to memorize this. Give me one regulation.
Mind.
Mind. Okay, usually start with the 2 important ones: eating and drinking, and
Sleeping.
sleep. Okay. Then the other one is. Then we talk about what?
Breathing.
Breathing, body, and mind. Those last 3 are what we regulate through this practice. When we touch, and this is again, it goes into deeper ideas of even Chinese medicine, etc. When you're touching, especially 5-point prostration, so Kane, please do the prostration, the daihai from standing. Most people have never been taught how to do the proper daihai.
And I have to remember.
Oh, this is why I put you up there. Oh, let's go. Just try your best. Yeah.
And it should go down.
Okay, how many points of your body are touching the ground?
3.
Just 3?
Actually 5.
5. Actually, wait. 5 point. That's a 5-point prostration. Okay, you can come up. Also, what is he doing with his hands? Does anyone know?
Holding up the Buddha.
Buddha touching Buddha's feet. Exactly. That's right. Don't do like this, otherwise Buddha falls down. Hold it flat. That's really important. Just up to your ears. That's a kind of mindful. This is a yoga practice because actually, even this posture that people say, oh, they're sitting up for Caesar. This is actually a yogic posture. So is the bowing. That's why most people, before you can practice Buddhism in most temples, so when I was a monk, I had to perform, I forget, like 300,000 prostrations or something like that. So I had a little rug, a little chart that I would come out and do every day a certain amount that I had to be done within a month before I could become a monk. That was one, they do that in Tendai as well. And so that is because we regulate the body, right? Because the body, what does the body, what's one of the issues that happens with the body during meditation? Does anyone know? Huh? Tension? So what does the tension do? When you have tension, what happens to your mindfulness? Stress?
You start to focus on the body.
That's right. So therefore, you can't focus on concentrating, right? Because your mind goes to one place. Concentration is interesting because when people think concentration, most people think of meditation, they think of zoning out. Okay, we're not zoning out. There's a very specific point of concentration. That is why I always say at the end, when we ring the bell is for you to release the concentration. Because that's why some people think that they walk around and meditate all day. That is not the purpose of meditation. Meditation is a specific practice to see into something. So you must meditate at a point, then break your concentration to come back to the regular world. Because that is not, meditation is not proper in that state. You can have an awareness state, which is what we see through meditation, but it's important to remember that meditation is only a method, right? It is not actually the whole enlightenment. So this is called kokugu teizu. So Kantoku, please come up to the front. So if you are at home, please try this yourself. So in this prostration, 5 parts of the body, the head and all 4 limbs touch the ground. That's why this is considered the most respectful way to bow to the Buddha. Okay? Most Buddhists do the little this one. Why?
Well,
Easy, that's exactly right.
and a lot of times people are standing.
That's right. But actually, why do we touch the earth?
Because we follow.
Grounding. But also, I said yesterday, as I said, humans have a very important point in this world. That's my crazy writing. Somebody said this is like, I was born with ADHD, so this is kind of thing in the mind of an ADHD person. So, all right. So here is a heaven, right? And here is earth. We talked about this yesterday. Most of the time, people think heaven is good, earth is good, but what is our purpose as humans in the world? Usually humans are seen as a problem, right? Stay away from the earth, stop touching the earth, stop getting involved. But actually Buddhism does due to ignorance. If you look at earth, these are, what do you call this? Horizontal, eh? But the human is a vertical by nature, standing up straight. Huh?
Which is why the baby Buddha is pointing in both directions.
That's right. Also, baby Buddha is what? In heaven and earth. I alone am the teacher of the Buddha. A teacher of enlightenment. I will be the savior of the people. But that doesn't mean savior in the same idea as you may think in Christianity. This is the idea that I will be inspiration for people, because Buddha is not the person, it's a nature. We are kind of the connection between heaven and earth. That is why the Buddha is standing like that at his birth. Symbolically, that's a poetic license. Of course, Buddha was not born that way, but this is symbolically saying he is connecting heaven and earth with his nature. So when we bow, he is connecting heaven and earth. So, fukuhai is the ultimate expression of reverence. That's why at the beginning of Shodaigyo, we do fukuhai. It's called fukuhai. Standing straight with gasho, take a half step back on your right foot. Bring your left foot in line with your right foot. Lightly take your robe about the knee height in each hand. First put your right, then your left knee down. And then a floor, do joki. If you look, can you see his toes up like that? Put your toes closer together, the two wide. That's awful, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Joki. It's not meant to be comfortable, right? Reason why, this also has to do with Chinese medicine. But if you look at what he's doing with touching the body, going down to the ground, why is the right knee first? Jinyo, you're right. Why though? Everything has a, so yin yang has the idea of the, you can relax your toes for a moment. Mountain, like this, okay? So I need another marker, kind of, this is getting really light. Yeah.
Coming.
Oh, yes. Just imagine a line here.
That was great.
Just imagine the line there. So here's a mountain. This is the easy way to remember yin yang, okay? Because most people are like, which one's yin, which one's yang, right? Did you ever get confused? Sometimes they mess it up on the internet, so it's not right. Idea is they have the sun here, right? So then you look at where the sun is shining the most is a yang. And then where the shade is, this is shade, right? This is yin. So the characters of both, yang is a hot, like energy. Yin is like cold and like drafty or moisture too. Those are the natures of the two, okay? Our body also has a left side, right side. So if you are standing here, looking towards the sun, which side of your body would be yang? Front. But then you turn, that's another thing that happens. Then the back is yin. Yeah? Same with turning in Buddhism, because actually some traditions, it's the opposite. This right side is a purified side. That's why we show it to the Buddha first. It's usually why the right knee and some other methods of bowing, the right knee comes up first. right? And we show that side of our body. Also entering into the Daiban, entering into right first, like this with the shoulder. Yeah. So that's the idea of darkness and light idea in Buddhism. Just a interesting theory. So, okay. Then he's sitting in joki, excruciating joki. Actually, what this is doing, this position is not just because the Japanese like torture, right? This is actually a reason for this. Because it's actualizing the body and his body is properly straight up and down. Sijin Seiza. In order to be balanced there, he's kind of leaning forward a little bit. But when you have joki go up, the back and the center move back a little. He's much straighter there. Okay. Then slowly lower your upper body forward, holding your palms upward with fingers straight. Bend until your arms are on the floor, elbows touching the outside of your kneecaps. So outside, there's that connection with your kneecaps too. Simultaneously lower your head until your forehead touches the floor, then raise your hands about 9 centimeters from the floor or the height of your ears as an offering of one's palms for the Buddha to stand on. After a chosoku, this is called shosoku, go back to joki. So he puts his hands down, comes back up, puts his hands into gasho, and back in joki. Okay? So why doesn't everyone try it? Try to find a place and try it together. Try it at home too. Yeah, next. So stand back up. We'll go back. This is the first part. If you make it through the first part, then I'll teach you how to stand up. Okatoku, please stay here as our model.
All right.
And face the Buddha this way. Okay. And I'll walk through it one more time. So everyone face the Buddha. So this is not just for demonstrative person. Also on the cushion, never on the cushion. Step off the cushion. Find a place on the ground. Move back. Make room for each other. Peace and harmony. Why don't we stay on the cushion when we do that? Well, also that's right. Not touching the ground. Also, cushion is a place of height. That's kind of actually in the Vinaya, the monk is not allowed to sit on any high place during the, especially Dokusai Nichi in those time period, because that's a kind of humbling to get off the cushion. So in Japan, if you're ever met by somebody, you never bow to them sitting on the cushion. You get off the cushion and bow, and then get back on the cushion together. Okay. So standing straight with gasho. How about gasho? Show me your gasho. Let's see how good it is. Okay. Gasho is sometimes, if your hands are shaking like this and you're sweating profusely from your forehead, you're probably too stiff and stuck in gasho. Real gasho should be relaxed. Again, your elbows in, touching your body, hands and palms together. So don't have this big hole like this, right? You want to have them touching. All of the palms together should be touching. Yeah? Then you place it on your chin and roll it on your chest, touching your body. Okay? Hi. Then what we're going to do, take a half step back on your right foot. Bring your left foot in line with your right foot. Slightly take, if you have a rope, do that, or else just touch your knees and go down. Right knee first. Gently, don't slam into the ground. Keep your feet where they are. Left knee, good, excellent. Then what you're going to do, where you're at, see how his toes are up? Feels good, huh? This is actually stretching. This is a kind of stretch for meditation. Most Westerners are weak in their feet. Their feet are very weak on the bottom because they wear shoes all the time. And also this is important for meditation. Okay, Michael, that's excruciating. So then what you're going to do, then as you go down, place your hands on the ground, palms up, fingers together. Place your head to the ground. Touch the ground. Don't lift your butt up too far. That's why you have joki. Then what you're going to do, raise your hands flat up to your ears, keeping them flat. Good. Thumbs in though. Thumbs in. You have big thumbs. So thumbs in. Then what you're going to do, drop them back to the ground. Lift your head up. And as you come up, full body, move up with your body together. One body movement into gasho. Okay, good, 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 good. So, let me give you a direction here. In this prostration, 5 parts of the body, the head and all 4 limbs come into contact with the floor at the same time. in the Fugen and Zuiki sections of the worship hall, Fukuhai Chosoku and not Kokuzei Tezu is performed. If there is not enough room to do Fukuhai, then you should only bow with Gasho, right? So there's appropriate places for that to happen. When I was a monk, I went with the Dalai Lama's brother, Professor Norbu, who was a monk, and we bowed from Toronto to Rochester. So every 3 steps, bow. Took about a month and something. So take a time and then every day and then drive back to the place and go back to bowing. It was going, I forget why. Oh, it's because of the Panchen Lama had disappeared. That's the Lama that picks the Dalai Lama. So they were protesting them. So this is the idea of Naihai. So when you're doing Naihai, don't do the cheap Naihai like this. If you have the mats in the proper place where you meditate, please do the standing Naihai. Okay. Next one. Open your chanting. Is a dojo game. Does anyone know the meaning of dojo game?
Or dojo kan?
Dojo kan?
Dojo-kan, sorry, dojo-kan.
Dojo would be like place of training.
Yeah.
And kan would be being able to perceive that.
So please read it for us, what it says.
Dojo kan, perceiving the dojo.
Yeah, please
Know
read it.
this. Know this. This place in which we find ourselves now is a dojo, a place of Buddhist training. All Buddhas come to this place and attain perfect enlightenment. All Buddhas come to this place and turn the wheel of the Dharma. All Buddhas come to this place and enter into Nirvana. So this is idea of making this place a place of practice. So after you do Naihai 3 times, on the last one, you stay where you are and you chant dojo game. That is purifying this place to become a dojo, like in karate or something, a place of practice and studying. What was the famous saying of learning and practicing? Without learning and practicing, there is no Buddhism.
That's right.